Hey everyone, welcome to Spurs Beyond the Lane. We have got club news, international news, as well as transfer news for you today. And we'll get a separate video out on Thursday night or Friday morning to cover the game against Aston Villa as well. But we'll talk about that at the end. So first up, internationals, mostly successful across the board for all involved. A few results that didn't quite go the way. Northern Ireland, Jamie Donnelly. Unfortunately, we lost 1-0 at home to Germany, but to be fair, they've tanked us every other game for the last God knows how long, so a 1-0 defeat actually isn't too bad for us. On a whole though, across the board, everyone else seemed to have played when they have played pretty well, as well as some players not even being given game time, which isn't such a bad thing for us with the game coming up against Aston Villa at the weekend on Sunday. So all in all, pretty good. But the cherry on the cake, two things. Dane Scarlett, with the injury to Ollie Watkins, was brought into the full England squad for training sessions, which is a really nice bit of experience. And England used to do this quite a lot with a lot of up-and-coming young players, where they would bring them into the fold with training sessions stuff, just to give them an idea of what the difference is between the under-21 level and the full international level as well. So it can only hopefully stand him in good stead for the rest of the season for us, should we need to call upon him in games. To be honest, I'm surprised he hasn't had much time as it is, considering the injuries that we've had up front. So with that, the big news though on the international front was Ben Davies getting his 100th cap and captaining Wales at the other night there. Although it was a defeat to Belgium, 100 caps is a fantastic achievement for any player for their country. So congratulations to him. Unfortunately, he did come off injured in that game, so may be doubtful for a little while. Still waiting to see what the news on that injury front is, and we'll probably get a lot more accurate information once he returns to the club. I know he hasn't been playing an awful lot of games for us or really been involved, but he's always been solid when called upon, so it isn't particularly great to have another player out injured that we might actually need, certainly on a rotational front, as we start getting back into the football season proper, and with the heavy rotation of cup games and European games being added to the Premier League mix. So all in all, a very good night for him, although that wee injury is a little bit of a sad thing to it. But 100 caps, as I say, is a fantastic achievement for any player. So again, well done, Ben. Let's jump straight into the transfer news. We are getting linked with anybody and everybody at the moment. Again, as we've said in numerous preview and review videos of the games that we have played so far this season across all competitions, that left wing spot is still an issue for us and has to be the number one slot that we go looking to replace or bring somebody in there. As I said in previous videos, we've had Matthias Tell, Audebert, as well as Xavi and Brennan Johnson try and play down that side, and no one really nailing it down. Xavi, though, isn't really meant to play on the left wing. He is the number 10, but he's having to play there just simply because the guys have not been stepping up to the plate. But if we go back at the international bit, Audebert and Matthias Tell have been absolutely slaying it for the French under-21s. I think it's some like 7 or 8 goal involvements over 2 games between both of those players, which can only stand us in good stead when they come back, as well as Matthias Tell getting his first goal for the club just before the international break, and you can see that continuing on. So fingers crossed for Tell. That's him broke his barrier, and we'll start seeing a lot more coming out from him, as well as Audebert, who has looked threatening on occasion coming down that left-hand side. But hopefully, you know, if either of them two kick in, then the left wing won't really be a problem, but they need to use the rest of the time up to the January window to prove themselves in that slot. However, if they don't, we do have a number of options on the books. First up is Brentford's Kevin Schade, 23-year-old German player, has been playing particularly well for Brentford. 11 goals and 2 assists last season in 38 games. So the guy can do those types of things that you need him to do. At 23 years of age, he's got a good bit of experience under his belt as well, and kind of fits in with the Tottenham mould in terms of what we look for. Whether or not Brentford would be looking or willing to sell him is a different matter, but we can only test the waters with a bid if we are that serious and see what comes of it. A player that is quite well known so far in the league, so it wouldn't be such a bad option, and he does look like a pretty decent player in the small amount of time that I've seen him play. On top of that though, if we don't go for him, the number one left wing target for me is definitely Semenyo. Without a doubt, I know that he has signed a new contract to 2030, but in the grand scheme of things, by far he has been phenomenal this season. He was brilliant last season. He has been even better this time round. Even with signing that new contract, I think a bid in between 80 to 90 million would secure him. The Ghana international as well is running up to this World Cup, so will be playing his skin off in that position for them. So we want him here. Definitely must be the fans' #1 choice. I know he is mine. I would love to see us go and get Matoma from Brighton. I just don't ever see that guy leaving. And it's always one of the ones I look at and think, come on, somebody needs to just test the water here. Go for him, see what happens. But he isn't being linked to us, although he is a player I really, really like to watch. And I think he would be a Tottenham player through and through. But it's not on this list, unfortunately, for today. On top of that, we are considering using our option to buy Polinia, but trying to bring it forward into January. And the news coming out of Bayern Munich is positive that we could potentially get a deal done. As part of the arrangement for the loan, it was said a £26 million option to buy, no obligation but an option, should Tottenham wanted to purchase the player at the end of the season. There were some rumours floating about that Bayern Munich were going to activate the recall and bring him back in just simply because his form has been so exceptional at Spurs so far this season. But on top of that, they're also now saying that actually Vincent Kompany has no reason to bring him back simply because he does not fit into the way he wants his midfield to play, and so would not be looking to do that, which would be an absolute blow to us for the rest of the season because he is the linchpin in that midfield. We just look so stable and solid. We don't lose our shape, and we always look to be able to cut out threats coming through the park. So if we can get that done in January, and the rumours are suggesting we might even be able to get him for that lower than that £26 million fee, we can snatch him for 20 million, then I would absolutely run in there and grab it with both hands. Despite the age of the player, he does not slow down. He is as fit as any other player on that pitch, and a lot of them are a hell of a lot younger than he is. And he would be a fantastic signing for the club. So to me, it makes absolute perfect sense. Goalkeeper options. This is an interesting one to have popped up over the last week or so, especially considering how Vicario has played in the last couple of games. Bearing in mind, he is also still one of the best shot stoppers in the league, and the statistical data backs that up. However, in the last 3 games, in my opinion, he has made some really poor goalkeeping decisions and errors that have led to us conceding goals in games that we have ended up dropping behind quite significantly by 2 goals, and then having to ramp it up and try and push harder to get the goals back and managing to actually get points out of those games, which we wouldn't have had to have done if he had been just doing the simplistic things in goal while he was there. So I see it, but I would rather see Kinski get a run in the team rather than spend money in a position where I think we've actually got 2 very, very strong options there. We were at one point last week being linked with Ter Stegen at Barcelona because of all the situation in and around that player, but I would imagine that if a player like that was to become available in the market, there's going to be a whole host of clubs that are considered a lot bigger than we are that would be fighting in contention for that player. So if it was to come true and we were to get him, it'd be brilliant. He would definitely walk straight into those goalposts without a shadow of a doubt. I just don't see that one happening. But it's interesting to see that those rumours are still picking up today as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that one plays out in January, if that even comes true. I wouldn't think it would do. I think we've got 2 solid goalkeepers there. And should we need to, Brian Austin isn't a bad goalkeeper either. He just hasn't really had to be tested in the Premier League or Europe for that to happen. But as I say, we released 2 goalkeepers in the summer, so bringing in a 4th probably isn't such a bad thing anyway, but we'll wait and see. Any other rumours on that one, we'll put it out in another transfer club update video. So on top of that, again, in the last transfer video I did, we talked about the Portuguese centre forward, and I'm going to slaughter this name and I do apologise, Samu Agahawa. I'm probably not saying it right, and I do apologise. As I say, Porto, 21-year-old Spaniard playing in that league. I think he scored something like 34 goals in 40-something games or 52 games or something like that. So a tremendous goal record in the Portuguese league. But in saying that, so did Victor Gyökeres, who has signed for Arsenal, and he has only scored 3 goals in 10 games, and I think those 3 came in 2. So Portuguese league to the Premiership is a massive jump in difficulty. So I would always take it with a pinch of salt when we're looking at players like that, because of the goal scoring form and whether or not that will translate from the Portuguese league into the Premiership, and again at any other lower league level that isn't kind of considered top tier. I would always consider the same thing. He is 21 years of age, so he would have that time to develop, but again, if we're going to be going down that road, look at what we've already got sitting there. Bates Tell can play through the middle, and he's 20 years old, so he still has a lot of time to develop and become the player that we need him to. Plus we also have Dane Scarlett and a number of other younger players that are out on loan right now that could also fit into that same mold and getting the opportunity to develop. So why would we go and spend 50, 60 million on this guy if there's a very real risk that he will not become the player that we need him to, and especially right now? So for me, I don't think it's ever going to happen. To be fair, Porto are also saying they're not wanting to sell, but we know what it's like for clubs like that. If you hit them with a big enough amount of money, the likelihood is they're going to want to talk to see what they can get out of it. So for me, I don't think this will happen. I would be really surprised if it does, and actually, to be fair, a little bit disappointing considering the options that we already have there. If we're getting a striker, we need someone who can do the business. And that leads me into the next one. Ivan Toney has popped up over the last couple of days as someone being linked to Spurs. He's also being looked at apparently by Manchester United as well, but they've just spent 240 million or something on 3 forward players. I don't see them spending another 30, 40 million to sign Ivan Toney, which would mean that if he was to come back, and despite the fact that he is enjoying life in Saudi, he's winning their version of the Champions League cups as well. So, he's enjoying the time as well as the money, no doubt, but he would be a very good option for us. We were linked with him at the time before he went to Saudi, so it kind of makes sense. Plus we've got a manager who knows him exceptionally well, so with that link, I would like to see that happen. To be fair, if we could get him for a decent amount of money, 25, 30 million would be nice, but considering how much investment the Saudis have put into that signing, whether or not we get him for anything in that region is hard to tell. He is 29 years of age, but the man knows the Premier League and he can score goals for fun. He scored 38 goals last season in Saudi as well. So, he hasn't exactly lost that touch. And I know the Saudi League is a lesser opposition than what you would find in the Premier League, but the thing about strikers is it's about consistency and putting balls in the back of the net. And let's face it, Tony has played with England and he has Premier League experience. So for me, ticks all the boxes, and again offers a very different option up front to Solanke and Richarlison, as well as Moane. So again, depending on the types of games we're playing and the opposition, he gives us that additional option to throw in there that will make it difficult for defenders as well. So for me, a very good option, and it's one I would like to have seen happen instead of him going to Saudi, but you can only do what you can do at the time. On top of that, there were rumours last week that we were being linked to the midfielder from Real Madrid, Federico Valverde, the 27-year-old Uruguayan. I can't see that one happening. To be honest, he's been at Real Madrid for ages. He's came out and said he doesn't want to leave. Real Madrid don't exactly want to sell him. The fans don't want him to go. It's a very difficult place to leave when all of those factors come into play. Plus the values that we're being linked to for the player is 87 million. Real would probably be wanting more as they're looking to try and fund the purchase of Haaland from Manchester City in the summer. So they'll be looking to want to bring in even more money for any players they're trying to get rid of. I just don't see that one happening, if I'm being honest. And if he was available, there's going to be bigger clubs than Spurs looking to get him. It's whether or not they're looking to bring a player of that caliber in. And to be honest, who would he be up against for those positions? He's either going to be fighting with Xavi or he's going to be fighting with Bentancur. To be honest, I'm happy with what we've got there. We know what they can do. I don't know how this guy's going to adjust into the Premier League, despite the fact he plays for Real Madrid. He hasn't played in a while, and he might take that wee bit of time to adjust to the Premier League to get up to speed with it and do it. No doubt he would do that because he is a quality player. But again, if we're going to be spending that kind of money on a midfielder, I would rather we spent it on a winger and get that left wing solid, because it is the only problem area for me on the pitch right now. Despite the fact we're having a few issues up front, but we're still scoring goals. We do have some issues with the goalkeeping situation, but they are very, very good goalkeepers. So to me, I don't think we need to replace them. The left wing is key for this. One that's kind of came out, and we were linked with him in the summer. We were linked with him before he even went to Real Madrid the first time round, is Arda Güler, the Turkish attacking midfielder. A very, very talented young man. Scored some phenomenal goals for Real Madrid and Turkey. We're being linked with potentially a loan move or potentially a purchase. I just don't see Real Madrid letting this one go. He's still considered a player that they want to keep for the future, even though he isn't getting games right now. And to be honest, if you could get him on a loan move till the end of the season, makes perfect sense to me. He gets game time. He's getting a bit of a run out, especially in the Premier League, and then going back to Real Madrid in the summer. It ticks the boxes for everyone if he isn't getting that game time and he wants to go and get some footballing time. And to be honest, at Spurs, looking at everyone else in the Premier League, he has the ability to come in there, fight with Xavi for that number 10 role, and, you know, get the game time that's going to put him in good stead going back to Real Madrid. And as a young player, he will get that time at Spurs. We're already seeing it with Thomas Frank coming in, that we've got a whole host of young players that are all getting footballing time. So it would be a good loan signing. Whether or not it comes off or even happens in the first place is a different matter altogether. At the end of the day, the January transfer window is a good number of months away, and anything can happen in that time. So moving on from the transfers, let's look at some club news, and there is some talking points here. So during the international break, not all players were away, meaning that there was time for the coaching staff to spend time with those players coming back from injury or those guys that just aren't quite getting game time. And there was a friendly game arranged versus Watford. We did get beaten 2-1. It was predominantly under 21 players, but it was a good way to get some of those first teamers who are not getting game time a run out and just seeing what they were doing. And most importantly of all, Kolo Muani got 45 minutes in that game and came through it without any scratches or any issues afterwards, which is fantastic news for us because it means come the Villa game at the weekend, he could be in contention for that squad. So it works out all right for us, especially that wee game time, getting a run out, even if all he's doing is getting 20, 30 minutes at the end of the game, because by the time we're hitting 70 minutes, Richie is starting to look awfully tired. The man runs relentlessly, he chases everything down, but he can't keep playing over 90 minutes every single couple of days because it's going to ruin the guy and he's going to get injured and then he'll be out for ages, and we just can't risk it. So seeing him come back is really good, and if he isn't quite ready to get into those spots, I want to see Dane Scarlett getting game time because I think this is a critical season for him. If he doesn't start picking up games this season, then I think we're going to have to look at selling him and getting and clearing the pathway for others coming through at the back of him. We have a lot of young talent over the years that look as if they're going to break into that first team and just haven't. Troy Parrott's one I've always thought a little bit bitterly that it never quite worked out for him and us. And I think he's a fantastic player. He plays exceptionally well for the Republic of Ireland. He's been playing very well on all his loans, and he played exceptionally well last season when he made his permanent transfer and is doing pretty good this season too. Josh Keeley is another one that I thought, you know, quite bitterly that we ended up having to get rid of him just simply because we had so many players and we needed to get turnover into the squad, but a very good goalkeeper. So, you know, again, getting these guys minutes is always good news. But if he can't make it, I definitely want to see Dane Scarlett getting more game time because it can only be good for us running into the future as well. So off the back of that, let's have a look at some of the injuries. James Maddison has started his own YouTube channel, documenting his recovery from long-term injury, and he is earmarking April for his return, meaning potentially there could be a number of months before the end of the season where he would be available to play. He has caveated that by saying, look, this is dependent on how the injury and the recovery goes. I will not rush myself back because I don't want any setbacks and being out for longer. Injury very, very similar to Bentancur's. It kept him out for over 9 months. However, with Bentancur, it was the meniscus that was damaged as well. So it does mean that his recovery should be a lot less. But again, with these injuries, you want to make sure you're recovering from ACLs perfectly without putting too much stress or strain on it when you return, because you come back too quickly, you're going to rupture, you're going to damage it, and then you're out for even longer recovering. And to be honest, at points this season, we have missed his talent in the middle of the park. So having him for that run in at the end of the season, especially if we end up fighting for a Champions League spot, having somebody of that caliber coming back into the team can only be great news to us. Takai and Dragusin are back in training as well, and hopefully over the coming weeks will be in contention for those matchday squads, pushing the rest of the team. I think Dragusin, I know last season some supporters were saying that he wasn't a good fit and we should just get rid of him. I think he's a phenomenal player. When I watch him play for Romania, he is just all business and is really a fantastic player. He reminds me a wee bit like Stefan Freund with the way he goes into his tackles, and he just loves a good challenge, very much like Polina. And I've even thought to myself on occasion, if we were really struggling for a defensive option in the middle of the park, that actually as a defensive midfielder, he might not be such a bad option, especially if we're coming to a point towards the end of a game where we need to try and close something out. It might not be a bad try out. But that's just me. What I know, Thomas Frank's a far better footballing coach than I am. But having those two young players coming back is great news as well, because it helps bolster the squad and allows for better rotation as well. Koro Takai comes with some really good quality experience. Although he's only 21 and he's played in the Japanese league, he has played games for Japan, so there is a good bit of experience from the international front there for him. Plus he's over 6 foot tall, which is a surprise in itself. But in some of the games that I have seen in Japanese international games, he has been really good and solid. Plus, if you watch any of his highlight reels, as all highlight reels are, he does look really strong in the challenge. But having seen more pictures of him now, the boy needs to beef up a wee bit, because he is going to be hit hard in tackles and challenges from centre forwards as well as other players. So he needs to beef up a wee bit. But having those guys back into the squad helps everything. The usual contenders, Kulusevski's hoping potentially within the next couple of weeks he should be back in contention. Again, we just have to play it safe. Again, he's coming back from a big surgery, so you want him to be fit and well when he does. So another good option over the next couple of weeks to a month or so, and we should be seeing these squads bolstering. And actually, with Kulusevski coming in, it gives us more options across the middle, which means we may not even need to go and get ourselves a left winger come the January break as well. So on top of all of those training items, the usual suspects are still out for the length of time. Solanke hopefully will be back in due course, but until that happens, we're still relying on Richie and Tell to lead the line for us. Obviously, Moani coming back and doing some game time in that friendly is really good and productive. So hopefully over the time, the coaches have used that well to get him back from that dead leg. So one more bit of club news. £100 million investment coming straight out of the Lewis Foundation through ENIC for the club for capital investment. Now, that can mean a whole host of things. I see a lot of fans getting excited about this, thinking we've got another 100 million dumped in for January. That's not necessarily what it means. This could be money that could be getting used to invest across the board, the men's, the women's, as well as all of the youth setups. This could be used for the training and coaching infrastructure, as well as club infrastructure in the background. So increase of staff, medical personnel, physiotherapy, all of that kind of stuff could be seen to be used for that. There could be adaptations or changes made to the stadium or additions where that money and investment could be used for that too. As of this time, ENIC have not mentioned, or the club have not mentioned, what exactly that money is going to be used for and by who and for what. So that is something we do need to wait on. In terms of ENIC themselves, there has been a little bit of investment with them, which has seen their stake in the club rise. So they initially owned 86.91%. That has now risen to 87.62%. Lewis family, part of ENIC, owns 70.12%, with the rest being owned by Daniel Levy and his family. So again, they've increased their stake within the club, which doesn't look like somebody or a group or an entity that is looking to sell it. We have had something like 3 or 4 takeover approaches to buy the club from them, and all of them have been rebuffed, as we've seen the many statements coming out from those who have intention of doing it, but also from the club in rejecting those approaches, and actually on a number of occasions have turned around and said we have no interest in purchasing. But when you see such a turmoil time coming up, when you see someone who has been integral to Spurs over the last 25 years, as Daniel Levy has, it does kind of open the floodgates that thinks that everybody else is willing to sell. Just because he left the post, he hasn't sold his shares, neither has any of his family, and certainly none of the Lewis family have either, which means that it looks like the book is closed on this one, at least for now, but you never know what the future might hold as other investment opportunities arrive. What does that mean in terms of what we've already seen, we've been told we're going to be getting? Well, to be honest, until we get a big statement telling us exactly what that money is going to be used for, absolutely nothing. It's there. What it gets used for, how it gets used, as I say, will be determined by the hierarchy, and we'll get that at some point in the future. So at least if the money and the investment's there, it's a sign of intent from the Lewis family. The first one we've really had since they've been involved in the club and took it over all that time ago. So hopefully this will be a sign of things to club. That money could also be used to increase the wage pool and to be able to offer bigger and better wages, which means we might actually be able to be in with a shout in nailing down some of those bigger transfers moves and the big names in the game. So it could very well be a bright future for Spurs depending on that. We do have the game on Sunday. It was moved from the Saturday, so it could be shown on television. I think it's Sky Sports, not 100% sure on that one, but it's a 2 o'clock kickoff, so I'm just assuming whatever channel it's showing, you'll need a subscription, and the kickoff and the TV match stuff will probably start an hour or so beforehand. So I will be at that game on Saturday, really looking forward to it. And as I say, either Thursday night or Friday morning, we will get a preview video out for the game against Aston Villa. So really looking forward to that. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you found it enjoyable. Let me know what your thoughts are on everything we've discussed. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Come on, you Spurs.